Hello and welcome to the CNBC Conversation. I'm Arjun Kharpal, and over the next 30 minutes, we hear directly from the man behind Chinese tech giant Huawei. Ren Zhengfei founded Huawei with just 21,000 renminbi, about $5,000 back in 1987. Today, it is a global powerhouse, the world's largest telecom equipment manufacturer and one of the biggest smartphone makers globally. But for all the success, there's always been a cloud of suspicion hanging over Huawei. Critics say the company and Mr. Ren are closely tied to the Chinese government and may spy on its behalf. Huawei strenuously denies the claims. Mr. Ren, you started Huawei over 30 years ago with $5,000. What were you thinking at the time, and what were your expectations for the company?
其实当时我们创立华为的这个时代背景呢
When I had just started Huawei, we still did not understand China's reform and opening up policy. The country wanted to reform and open its doors. However, most of us didn't really understand how important this decision made by the CPC Central Committee was.
这个通信要大发展
I had a vague feeling at the time, though, that the communications industry was about to explode, and so I started looking for opportunities in this market with tremendous potential. We just wanted to produce some small things that could easily be sold. We did not know that these small things were designed to connect the whole city or even the whole world, so our products needed to be standardized. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to enter the network equipment industry. We chose a tough road. The industry had high requirements. Our company was very small then and almost had no capital or technology. It was hard times.
说这个时候极端困难的通信这个产业
I hadn't realized that the communications industry was so cruel. However, there was no way back. I raised a total of over 20,000 RMB to pay the variety of fees needed to start a company. By the time I got my business license, I didn't have a single penny left. There was no chance for us to step back and start another business. So we gritted our teeth and pushed ahead.
我们都咬着牙齿做下来了
You were in the People's Liberation Army. You survived some hardships like famine. What did you learn at the time that helped you start Huawei and guide your philosophy?
爱立信的 CEO 曾经问过我
When Ericsson was already really big, Huawei was still a caterpillar. 20 years later, the then CEO of Ericsson asked me where I got the courage to enter the communications industry despite its high entry barriers. I told him that I didn't actually know that the barriers were so high, and once we had entered the industry, there was no turning back.
我退不出去了 虽然我经历了中国的大饥荒的时期
I lived through the great famine that hit China and the economic recovery that followed. I also participated in a large project that brought equipment in from France. These experiences taught me to endure hardships. When I was young, I had no ideals. Wearing nice clothes or seeking further education was not what I wanted. I only wanted to keep my belly full. That's my only ideal.
我们就想吃饱饭 这肚子吃饱毕竟在中国搞文化革命的时候
Back then, China was still going through the Cultural Revolution. The country paid little attention to technology and knowledge, but we were working on a project that required technology and knowledge. Working on such a highly modernized project was really a good experience for me.
对我人生是有很大锻炼的
I want to talk a little bit about your management style. You often use military imagery, images of battles in your speeches, and communications with employees at the company. Is business a battle for you?
我呢就讲的这个东西就是讲的是压强延展
I often talk about staying focused. Tanks can cross a swamp, but needles can pierce hard things through. We have limited resources and technologies. Everything is limited. If we spread things too thin, there is no way we will be successful. So instead, we choose to narrow our focus, like a needlepoint, on a specific area where we can make breakthroughs. Every year, we invest more than $20 billion in it. At Huawei, we often talk about the term of Van Fleet load, which was invented by a general of the U.S. Army. We invest heavily in our focus area. At first, this focus approach lets us start pulling ahead of our Western peers in a given area. But then, once we had established some market presence, we began to build up capital. But our strategy of focused investment never changed as our capital grew. Gradually, we have become a leader in this narrow, focused area.
Stay with us on the CNBC conversation. We'll have more with Huawei's founder when we return.
When the U.S. government criticizes us, it tells the world how great Huawei is. For such a powerful country to be scared of a small company like us, some other countries are saying, your products are so good that the U.S. government is scared. We won't test your products. We'll buy them directly.
Some governments have criticized the relationship between Huawei and the Chinese government. There's also been questions about your past as a Communist Party member and what that means for Huawei. And also, some countries have also said that Huawei could be a risk because it could work with the Chinese government and carry out espionage on behalf of Beijing. How do you respond to some of these very, very strong criticisms from governments around the world?
Huawei is based in China. So firstly, we must abide by Chinese laws and regulations. Secondly, we need to pay taxes to the Chinese government. Our relationship with the Chinese government is primarily defined by these 2 points. Our subsidiaries in other countries also have this relationship with local governments. They also need to follow local laws and regulations and pay local taxes. If we didn't pay taxes or follow the laws and regulations in the over 170 countries where we operate, we wouldn't have survived in those countries.
You mentioned you abide by local laws here in China. There are critics who point to certain national intelligence laws in China that compel Chinese companies to help the government with national intelligence work if they're asked. If the Chinese government or any other government asked you to hand over data, how would you react?
Mr. Yang Jiechi, a member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee, made a statement at the Munich Security Conference that the Chinese government always requires Chinese firms to abide by international rules and laws and regulations of the country where they operate, and that China has no law requiring companies to install back doors or collect foreign intelligence. Even if we were ordered to, Huawei would still not install back doors.
And Mr. Ren, you talk a lot about the distance between Huawei and the Chinese government, but what we've seen publicly is senior officials in the government talking at times on Huawei's behalf. Is that useful to the company, or do you find that a distraction?
First, it's understandable that government leaders would take pride in the great companies of their country. Second, Huawei is being stuck in an extremely difficult situation. The U.S. is launching intense attacks against us. If the U.S. government speaks ill of Huawei, why couldn't the Chinese government speak in our favor? That creates a kind of balance. In the past, no one spoke up for us. Right now, the support of the Chinese government may not necessarily help our sales, but when the U.S. government criticizes us, it tells the world how great Huawei is. Over the past century, which countries and companies have made the U.S. scared? The U.S. hasn't been scared of anyone or anything, though. For such a powerful country to be scared of a small company like us, some other countries are saying, your products are so good that the U.S. government is scared. We won't test your products. We'll buy them directly. That's why some deep-pocketed countries with rich oil reserves are buying from us. They are buying our products in large quantities as the U.S. government is advertising for us.
So would you say the U.S. is scared of Huawei?
If they aren't scared of us, why are they advertising for us everywhere they go?
Do you feel that Huawei is a pawn in the broader US-China trade war that's going on at the moment?
这个东西呢，因为我不清楚，就美国他们的法端是什么。
I don't know what the U.S. is after and have no idea how they are going to resolve the trade disputes.
但是我的认为呢，我们解决不了。
But I don't think Huawei can help solve the disputes between the U.S. and China. If we get caught in the middle, we will be crushed like a watermelon when these two powers clash. We don't have much influence over China-U.S. trade relations. Second, we don't really sell in the U.S. market, so we will not be affected by a sales ban.
But the US has put intense pressure on some of its allies in Europe to block Huawei from 5G networks. Do you still feel Europe is open to Huawei, or could one country blocking Huawei mean that the whole union stops Huawei from participating in 5G?
欧洲短时间有挫折，不会有影响。
In Europe, we will face some difficulties in the short term, but there will be no impact on our business. I can share some numbers with you. Sales of our consumer business increased by more than 70% in the first quarter of the year. Our network equipment sales dropped 1.5% last year, but enjoyed a 15% increase in Q1 of this year. These figures show that we are still growing, not declining, so this won't impact us too much. European countries want to think over all their options a bit. I think it's the right thing for them to do. Germany proposed the establishment of a unified global convention that will bar all equipment vendors from installing backdoors and require them to sign a no-spy agreement. We are supportive of this. We endorse unified global standards that make installing backdoors a crime.
装后门就是犯罪，在未来5年。
Over the next 5 years, we will invest more than $100 billion in R&D to restructure our networks. In particular, we will build the simplest networks, ensure cybersecurity, and protect user privacy. We will also increase our sales revenue, which is now more than $100 billion to around $250 billion. We are going to make this happen. Will Europe understand us when they see how much effort we are putting into this? If they do, they will buy some of our products. If they don't, they might not buy our products. If that happens, we will just sell our products to other countries that do accept us. We can scale down a little bit.
市场就适当收缩一点。
I want to switch topic a little bit to talk about your daughter Meng Wanzhou. She's of course facing extradition to the US. How did you feel after her arrest in December?
我的自认为可能他们没有那么多证据，也没有这么多事实。
I believe they may not have the evidence or the facts to prove her guilt. Huawei has kept a low profile ever since it was founded. Nothing we've achieved would give us the right to neglect any laws or overlook the technologies of any country.
我们可能一天都活不下来。
If we didn't abide by those laws and regulations, we wouldn't survive even a day. This case is undergoing legal procedures, and we believe it will be solved in court. The U.S. and Canadian legal systems are open, transparent, just, and fair. We will wait for the court to make its judgment.
对这个问题做出的结论。
But what was the personal effect of her arrest as a father on you?
我觉得呢，我们认为呢，儿女大了，对吧？
I think my children have grown up without experiencing much hardship. Struggling a bit can be good for them. Cuts and bruises toughen her up. And even since ancient times, heroes were born of hardship. I think this challenge will be good for my daughter. These difficulties will make her stronger and prepare her for even greater things ahead. so I'll let her face what she is facing.
就让他继续煎熬吧。
I want to go back a little bit to talk about the US-China trade war because Meng Wanzhou was arrested in Canada on behalf of the US authorities. Do you think she's a hostage in this broader US-China trade battle?
也许吧。
Maybe.
You said, Huawei should not be used as leverage between China and the US. Donald Trump, President of the United States, has said that he could intervene in the Meng Wanzhou case as part of a bigger trade deal between the US and China. Is that something you would welcome?
I don't know. President Trump hasn't shared his thoughts with me.
Have you tried to reach out to the president to speak to him about it?
I don't have his phone number.
What do you think of his leadership style and his tactics?
如果说你单独叫我评价特朗普呢？
I would like to comment on President Trump without considering his administration's treatment of Huawei. I would like to express my own opinions instead of as a Huawei representative.
特朗普是伟大的总统。
I would say he is a great president. He is the first president of a democracy to reduce taxes significantly within such a short period of time. His tax cuts are helping revitalize enterprises. That's why I said he is a great president. But he also has shortcomings.
还有呢，他不主力一点。 他今天就吓唬这个国
If
家。
President Trump continues intimidating other countries and companies and keeps randomly detaining people, who would risk investing in the U.S.? People will be afraid of getting trapped there. If no one dares to invest in the U.S., then how can they make up for lost tax revenue? The government would find it hard to address its deficit. When he reduces taxes, he must be hoping to attract more investment. But if investors are scared that they won't get their money back, they won't dare to invest in the U.S.
他应该是税减下来了。
After he reduced taxes, he should have been friendlier to other countries and try to convince everyone that the U.S. is a great place to invest. If everyone went to invest in the U.S. economy would grow dramatically. The U.S. doesn't need to conquer the world through violence.
不需要精简。
You've said in the past that the US government hasn't seen Huawei's technology, hasn't seen Huawei's source code. Would you invite Donald Trump and his administration to your campus here in Shenzhen to let them see the technology that you have, to put their fears at rest?
到深圳来
They are more than welcome to come visit us in Shenzhen.
Still plenty more ahead on the CNBC conversation, including
我们迭代更替是有持续
Iterative
的。
succession must take place in an orderly fashion. It's not up to me to designate a successor. Don't worry that Huawei would end up having no successor. In fact, we have too many.
You've said that you want to be number one in smartphones. You've often looked up to Apple as a role model. Steve Jobs and Tim Cook have managed to turn Apple into an iconic brand. Do you feel that Huawei is at that point yet?
我认为乔布斯呢，这是世界一个伟大的这个人。
I think Mr. Jobs was a great man. Apple is also a great company. It is great in that it has always pushed to make the market bigger, not smaller. With an umbrella, Apple sells at high prices and maintains high quality. It has grown the market, enabling many other companies to survive. When I look back on how Huawei developed in the telecom market, we actually made some missteps. We set prices based on our costs, which were relatively low. Our costs were low for two reasons. First, as our technology advanced rapidly, we managed to bring down the costs of our products. Second, thanks to the Western management approaches we brought in, our operational costs were also kept low. As a result, we set our prices at a relatively low level, which made it hard for Western companies to compete with us. We've reflected on this a lot. We have raised our prices, and now many people think Huawei is expensive. With higher prices, we have started earning more. But we will not distribute this extra money to our employees or shareholders. Instead, we will use it to fund universities and scientists for their research and explorations into the future.
去探索未来。
This way, we will be able to make world-leading products.
And part of that research and development budget has gone into 5G, into chips. You've got your own 5G chip. Typically, they've been used in Huawei products. Are you starting to think about how your own intellectual property like chips could be used and sold to third parties like Apple?
We are open to Apple in this regard.
Technology has moved on so rapidly in the past few years that a lot of people are talking about the impact of technology on society. We live in a very connected world. Do you feel that technology has been a force for good or a force for evil?
我认为呢，这个未来的技术的发展的速度会比我们想象的还要快。
I think technology will advance even faster than we could ever imagine. Some people ask me what the world would be like in 20 or 30 years. I said I couldn't even imagine what it would look like in 2 or 3 years. When Huawei was just founded, the world of communications was extremely underdeveloped. Today, only 30 years later, ultra-broadband has become accessible in most rural areas of the world. This is beyond what anyone had imagined. In the next 2 or 3 decades, technology will advance even faster. In particular, the emergence of AI has accelerated social progress.
加大了这个社会的进步。所以因此，人工智能
AI will make the world better, not worse. Even if AI poses other threats, we can manage them with laws and rules. There is no need to worry too much about some comments posted on the internet.
想象出来的。
One of the concerns is that these powerful technologies like artificial intelligence are being developed by a small group of very, very big technology companies. And there is concern that some of these large technology companies just have too much power. Do you think that companies like yours are too powerful and need to be regulated?
我的认为呢，就是未来的社会。
As technology develops, the future world will become winner takes all. What company can outperform Microsoft in Office and Windows? None. So Microsoft is the winner, and it dominates the market. More and more companies are harnessing new technologies more quickly. This is because technology is lifeless and can be widely applied. We support transparent regulation over companies with new technologies, and we are willing to be subject to such regulation. That's why we told the German government that we are willing to accept their regulation. However, monopolies in these kinds of technologies will benefit the world rather than harm it.
不是在破坏社会。
Mr. Ren, as we come to the end of this conversation, I want to focus on your future. You've grown the company over 30 years to the size it is now. Have you thought of retiring anytime soon?
从长远的未来呢，我可以告诉你，
In a long run, I can tell you clearly that I will retire, as I won't be alive forever, but in a short term, it depends on my mental agility as I get older. I think Google might one day come up with a medicine that helps people live forever, but I may not be able to see it coming.
也许我等不到了。
And do you have a succession plan in place for when you eventually do retire?
哎，我们的管理治理纲要
Huawei's future iterative succession system is clearly defined in our articles of governance. We can give you a copy if you want. Iterative succession must take place in an orderly fashion. It's not up to me to designate a successor. Don't worry that Huawei would end up having no successor. In fact, we have too many, but Meng Wanzhou would definitely not be the successor.
孟晚舟是不会接班的。
You mentioned earlier in our conversation that people ask you about your vision for 20 to 30 years, but you don't even know what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. But just tell me what you think are going to be some of the significant technological developments over the next few years that you see coming.
我认为最大的技术发展就是人工智能的这个使用和应用。
I think the biggest technological advances will be seen in AI experimentation and applications. At Huawei, we have 2 major areas that we are focusing on for the future. First, we want to provide the best connectivity in the world, and 5G is part of connectivity. Second, we strive to become the world's best in edge computing. Large equipment still relies on an architecture of no other elements but computing, storing, and connecting. So we will also work hard to contribute to a cloud world.
能做出一点贡献。
Mr. Ren, thank you very much. 谢谢. That's all we have time for on this edition of the CNBC Conversation. For more, go to our website, cnbc.com. I'm Arjun Kharpal. Thanks for watching.